Good morning, Hockey Nation Live fans and Pucks and Dreams followers. Last night was an exciting night because it was the first night of the Traverse City Prospects Tournament in Traverse City, Michigan. So we'll touch on the two games that were played there. News-wise, camps are getting ready to start in the next week after all the prospect tournaments and rookie camps. The Western Prospect Camp begins this evening in Arizona between all the Western teams, which is Colorado, LA, Anaheim, San Jose, Las Vegas, and of course the Arizona Coyotes. Last night was interesting, though, if you're a Detroit Red Wings fan, also if you're a Dallas Stars fan. A couple things we'll touch on, including, let's start with this Montreal Canadiens news. So it's kind of interesting that the upcoming 2022 draft will be hosted by Montreal. So they will host the draft at the Bell Center in Montreal in 2022. Normally the draft is in June, but I believe this year, interesting, it'll be in July. So no, I guess that's correct. July is correct. No, it seems a little unusual. I think usually it's the beginning of July, so that makes sense. The 2022 draft should be very interesting because this is the Shane Wright draft. And I think it's going to be a pretty deep draft. And I don't know if you've taken a look at many of the prospects yet, but Shane Wright is definitely projected to be first overall. I don't see anybody supplanting him. The Russian Ivan Miroshnichenko, he's really good. He's an interesting player as well. Brad Lambert, we've seen he's an overage. 2003, they'll be drafted with a 2004, so that will also be interesting. And Matthew Savoy, so plays with Winnipeg Ice in the WHL, very high-end talent, very high-end prospect. So looks like he's ranked very high. Simon Nemec, David Jiricek's a very interesting defenseman, actually. Big right-hand shot defenseman coming out of Czech Republic. And then Connor Geekie, and you may recognize that last name of Geekie, which is Morgan Geekie, who is now on Seattle, came from Carolina in the expansion draft. And then Daniel Yurov. So these rankings obviously will change up. The other player I'll highlight here is Slavkovsky. There's two Slovakian players. Slavkovsky is a big 6'4" center we saw at the World Junior Championships. And then Simon Nemec, who he might be, in my opinion, he might be the best defensive prospect to come out of Slovakia, like maybe ever. I don't know. There's some other great Slovakians, like isn't Zdeno Chara Slovakian? But I don't think when Zdeno Chara was drafted that people knew he was going to be the superstar he became. So this should be a really interesting draft. There's lots of other players in here, including Seamus Casey, Isaac Howard out of the U.S. Development Program. Those are all interesting players to watch. The other Jack Hughes, not related to the current Jack Hughes. And then Cruz Lucius, who is Chaz Lucius, who you saw drafted this year, his little brother. He's not so little anymore. Last time I saw him, he was very little, but he's about 6'1", 176. And he's an interesting player to watch. So lots of talent in that draft. That draft to be hosted in Montreal at the Bell Center. So it should be an exciting time. We'll see if we can get out there for that. Good morning, Michael Rosenblatt. Thank you for joining this morning. Stefan Manberg, I'm excited to have you here. Coach Frenchie looks like today, I think he had other commitments. He was scouting for the Florida Junior Panthers, and I think he has to ref this morning. Good morning, Chainsaw Man. Thank you for joining us. So I don't know if you saw, but we were just commenting on that the 2022 draft is planned to be in Montreal, and that draft is really interesting. It's the 2004 birth year. I encourage you to check out mynhldraft.com, and they've got their initial rankings up, and obviously that's going to change. But definitely Shane Wright is going to be atop of that, but there's a lot of other talent in that draft. So that'll be really exciting to see in Montreal. Last night was interesting too if you're a Detroit or a Dallas fan, maybe Columbus too. The first game of the Traverse City Prospect Tournament, and we saw this canceled last year, so it's really nice to see this come back. And the first game featured the Columbus Blue Jackets versus the Toronto Maple Leafs prospects. And Toronto jumped out to an early 2-0 lead, but shocker, they end up losing 4-3 to the Columbus prospects. And there's a couple of Everett Silvertips on the Columbus team. So that was really interesting. But then we had the game between Detroit prospects and Dallas prospects. And wow. Some of the players were as advertised, I would say, on Detroit. We'll start with that. The first is Kirill Tyutyayev. He's projected as being a small, highly skilled winger. And man, did he show that last night. He scored the first goal of the game, and I believe the fourth or the fifth, but both of them are highlight goals, excellent goals from him. So that was really exciting to see that this is a prospect that was picked in 2019 in the 7th round by Detroit, and he was exceptional. So that was really exciting to see that, of all the other players that were there that we wanted to see, Kirill Tyutyayev put on a little bit of a show, and that was really interesting. He looks like, number one, he is currently unsigned. So I've got to think that out of this, they are going to be, unless they're thinking he's go back to the KHL, but I think this guy's got to get signed sooner than later because he was definitely the star of that tournament to start. We also saw Jonatan Berggren. There are games today. I'll pull up the schedule for you. Let's see. Yeah, the schedule. I'm gonna look for the combined schedule, but there's definitely games on Saturday and Sunday. I think today might be a practice day, actually, Stefan. But let's double check that before we get off. Let's see. Yeah, I think the next games are. This looks wrong. Yeah, this is old. I don't know why they make it so difficult to find the damn schedule. Actually, I created the schedule. Hold on. Let's pull it up because I did create a Google Doc. So just to comment, good morning, Greg John. Thanks for joining this morning. So in last night's game, we saw Tucciev. He really made a big impression. The goalie, Victor Braastrom, we were kind of hoping to see Sebastian Cossa, but Brastrom's also a fairly old, he's an older but a highly touted guy that they drafted a couple years ago. And man, did he look great for 2 periods. He had stopped 29 shots and they were up 5-1. Unfortunately, in the 3rd period, Dallas, well, if you're a Detroit fan, Dallas really pushed and made some interesting adjustments on the ice. Detroit started turning over the puck, which was really unfortunate, and they left the goalie out to dry, and it ended up being a 5-4 game. But before that, it was all Red Wings. So beside from Tucciev, what we saw was Jonatan Berggren, who's a 2nd-round pick, had a phenomenal year last year in Sweden. He he looked like Pavel Datsyuk in some ways. He picked a few pockets, including on the one goal where he picked the pocket of the defenseman in the corner. He goes to the corner, and he looks at Lucas Raymond, who's in the slot, and then he passes off to Joe Veleno, who roofs the puck. It was a great play. He also got an assist on the Chase Pearson goal. So he got an assist on the 2nd and the 5th goal, I believe it was. We also saw a one-timer goal from Lucas Raymond. And Lucas Raymond, first of all, he looks thick. Like he looks like he is physically ready to play wherever he wants to play. Highly skilled. We saw him on the power play controlling the puck from the point and from the half wall. He created lots of opportunity. He is a super skilled player, but he also created turnovers with his forechecking ability. So that was really interesting. They got a lot of talent there. The other guy I was looking for was Jared Mcgrew, who we know has had shoulder injuries for the last couple of years, including 2 major shoulder surgeries that have kind of wiped out the last 2 years for him. He looks solid, but I'm looking for more from him. I think there's a little bit of rust on him, but man, he's a decent size. He can really skate and move the puck, and he can join the offense. So those are all positives. Dominic Sobrano looked really good for Detroit. On the Dallas side, they had a real hard time with the skill the first 2 periods of Detroit. It was all Detroit those first couple periods. However, after that, they kind of made some adjustments. And what we saw is they are fast, they have skill, and they can play a little bit rougher game. And in the 3rd period, we got Jacob Peterson, who scored. We also had Damiani, and Damiani was pretty quick. He was really quick and played very well. We saw Riley Tuff score 2 goals, and that really got them back into the game. And Riley Tuff's a big 6'6" winger who hasn't really panned out in the AHL yet, but he might just take some time. He looks like he has a good skill level. Braastrom was awesome for Detroit. He faced a lot of rubber in that game. It was, you can see on the scoreboard, it was 5-2, and he had faced 28 shots at that point. He made some highlight reel saves. It would have been a lot worse, I think, in the first 2 periods. He really took the wind out of Dallas' sails early. We saw a good game from Jordan Kawaguchi, and we saw a good game from Ty Dellandrea. So it was really interesting. Oh, the other player that was really interesting was Logan Stankoven and Maverick Bork. So Dallas is not without talented players. And on D, we saw good shifts from Thomas Harley. So that was really interesting. I'm pretty excited, actually. If you're a Dallas fan, you should be excited because there's some talent there that maybe we haven't thought about. I have not heard the rumor about Kevin Waugh. So what is the story with Kevin Waugh, Chainsaw Man? So he was what? He's drafted by who? Is Kevin Waugh, like, I'm not sure what the significance of that is. Is that the what year is he? I don't recognize him because I know the Kevin Waugh I knew was a little bit older, and I'm not sure what the significance of or what impact that would be on their lineup. So feel free to comment and let me know. The Kevin Waugh I know was like 28 and played in the AHL and was drafted by Anaheim, but maybe you're talking about someone else that I'm not aware of. All right, so last night was pretty good. Let's take a look at the schedule because we do have a schedule here. Let's see. Let's put this up on the screen of what to expect. I'll say, the other guy that looked pretty good was Oscar Plandowski. He's actually a pretty good skater, and he's an unsigned draft pick. He looked really good, and Adam Brubacher looked decent, although he had some turnovers that weren't great later. Let's see. The Red Wings. Let's see. I don't know. Where's the schedule? Why is this so complicated? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Make this simple. Let's try it one more time. Traverse City Prospect Tournament. There we go. Center ice is the rink in Traverse City, and there's the schedule. So there are games today. St. Louis Blues today play the Toronto Maple Leafs Prospects, and at 7 o'clock we'll have Dallas Stars versus Columbus Blue Jackets. So we will not have a Red Wings game until tomorrow on Saturday. So that is the upcoming schedule. We saw some news, by the way, out of Seattle finally, and we were kind of waiting to see what they're going to do. It kind of makes sense that they would not have a prospect tournament. Their best pick is Matty Benners, and he's going back to Michigan. So we know that's, their best guy, and I don't think they have all the prospects you would think they would have yet. They probably need a little bit of time to build that up. So they will actually begin training camp on the 23rd, and that will be out of the Northgate facility. So Seattle Kraken, we finally got news on their training camp date, which is they will play at the Kraken Community Iceplex. And that will be on the 23rd, will be the first opportunity for fans to see them. Let's see. Practice viewing. Let's see what time it is. If you are in the Seattle area, that will be worth checking out because that'll be the first chance to see them on the ice together. So I think you can they have the Depths. So I think the Depths is their membership program. So you have to be a member, I think. It's $90 a season. We're seeing a lot of teams do this where you get priority access to ticket releases. And I don't know. They don't really have a schedule out yet, but at least we know it's on the 23rd. And we knew that the players were, it helps if this is on the, we knew the players were in Seattle, but we didn't know when they were actually going to hit the ice. So that was a little bit annoying. All right. So, what are you excited about? I don't know if you guys have paid attention to the Montreal Canadiens prospect camp. I haven't seen that. They don't participate in the Traverse City tournament. And we're going to see them hit the ice. Well, I think they've already hit the ice, but I don't think there's any games that are coming out. So it's going to be interesting. They have 27 players in camp for the Montreal Canadiens for their development camp before the regular camp. Some of those players include Tag Bertuzzi, who is the son of Todd Bertuzzi. So he'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Johnny Fairbrother, who is a third-round draft pick of Montreal from the Everett Silvertips. formerly our captain as well. I think he'll have a good year in the AHL. Caden Gould, it'll be interesting to see how close he is to the NHL. I think he kind of missed a lot of last year, and it would be great to see him get a full season in the AHL. I know a lot of you were talking about Rafael, Harvey, Pinard, smaller, skilled player that had a really good start in the AHL last year. So he'll be interesting to watch. Jan Mcisac, we're all kind of watching to see. I like this player. I think Pierre does too. I don't think he had a great introduction to Laval last year. Only got 2 goals in 22 games. And didn't do great in Litvinov either in the extra league. So that'll be interesting to see how he does this year. I would like to see some progress from him. It sounds like Matthias Norlinder will be in camp, but if he does not stick with the Canadiens in their top 6, he will go back to Sweden. I guess he can play up to 9 games like any other rookie before he goes back. The other player that a lot of people are talking about, which I don't really like his last name, but his name is William Trudeau, and that's worth keeping an eye on. And I'm really interested to see how close is Jesse Ylonen, because it would be really great if Jesse Ylonen has taken another step in his development and is a legitimate prospect to try to push for a job in the NHL. He had pretty good numbers in the AHL last year. He also played for the Pelicans in Sweden. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on this week. I'm not sure if any of these goalies, the Minsk goalie is interesting. He's from Belarus, so that'll be interesting to keep on. Zhigalov is his name. So those are players to keep an eye on if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan. And okay, so that is what I thought. It's Kevin Waugh. Yeah, I don't really think he's an NHL player, right? He's more of a Laval player. He's played for the Springfield. They call themselves the Thunderbirds now. I think that's what they call themselves. And the AHL, I don't project him as being an NHL prospect, but maybe he's kind of old, right? I don't know if he has any NHL games even. So that we're talking about the same player, it sounds like. So I don't know if he's been invited to camp or what the status is of him. His brother's Derek Roy. Oh, I did not know that. That is interesting. I mean, his brother, Derek, is that the same? Oh, it's a different Derek Roy, is it? Oh, his brother's a goalie. Never mind. I was thinking it was the Derek Roy that was of Kitchener. I'm like, there's quite a bit of age difference there if they're brothers. Yeah, okay. So Kevin Roy played actually last year for the Tucson Roadrunners. So that's interesting. Tucson is the farm team of the Arizona Coyotes. He had 30 points in 35 games. So he's been he was a decent producer. So in the last, call it 18 months, last 24 months, he's played a few NHL games, 25 games for Anaheim. Yep, so he's definitely played a few NHL games. Actually, I'll show you this. So that's interesting. Are they projecting him as what? I'm curious about it. At the very least, he's a pretty good AHL player. You can see he's got good numbers here with Tucson, Wilkes-Barre. He had a cup of coffee in Springfield, which is what the last team I thought he was with. He's played in San Diego, which makes sense because it's Anaheim's AHL team. He had good numbers here with them, and he's got some goals in the NHL. So that's interesting. Maybe they project him as being able to make the team. So that's interesting. He's had good numbers everywhere he's played. I think he's 5'9", so he's not like a big player, but maybe he's a small skilled player. I don't know a lot about him. He was a 4th round draft pick, and he's had good numbers all the way along. Quebec born, so maybe that's interesting. That will be interesting to see in camp. So keep an eye on him. Maybe he's in the regular camp. I think that's probably what you're talking about, Chainsaw Man. All right, so other news that we saw that we'll touch on, more from the Evander Kane saga. They keep putting this forefront. So it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure, on NHL.com, they keep putting out articles about him. He says he's not bet on the NHL or the Sharks and that he'll be exonerated. He says, I've gambled before, and I think that's well documented. It was a big part of my life for quite a number of years. Obviously, because he went through a bankruptcy of the debts that he owed to the casinos. His estranged wife made some social media posts in July, and now he's kind of going through an investigation. We know the biggest fallout from this, I think, for San Jose will be if Thomas Hertl, who could be an unrestricted free agent, as a center, maybe he's a third line capable center, a second line. It'd be interesting to see. I'd have to investigate a little bit more, Chainsaw Man, and see. I've not seen him play, and I don't think I ever saw, because he's small. Yeah, he's 5'9". Well, hey, worth it. I think there's probably opportunity there. I think Montreal's pretty good situation at center now, maybe better than they've been in a long time with Dvorak and Suzuki. third line, like a player that's 5'9", I'm not sure if that works out. But I mean, I guess we'll see what happens, right? At the very least, you got a really good player for Laval if he signs. So what do you think about this Evander Kane stuff? What will come to head of this? Because I think they keep publishing these articles on Evander Kane. It's interesting. This is from September 16th today or yesterday. Are they trying to set the precedent that, hey, he's going to be fine and cleared and get to go back to San Jose? So it doesn't look like the NHL, I think, will come out of this. I don't think they'd be publishing articles if they thought, hey, this guy is going to be in trouble. It's kind of weird, right? But I don't see Thomas Hertl wanting to go back, and I'm not sure about other players. Like Thomas Hertl's the biggest issue. Like Thomas Hertl's going to show up for training camp, and he's going to say again, I don't want to play with this guy. And a lot of other players don't want to play with him. And we saw that in Winnipeg. Like in Winnipeg, when he was in Winnipeg, there was a pretty famous incident where Dustin Byfuglien took all his stuff and threw it in the shower and said, you're done here. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. They've got him signed to a kind of a ridiculously long contract, like a lot of other players on that team. He had a great year on paper, but he just feels like a very individualistic person, and he's a very individualistic player on the ice. I've never been a huge fan. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds. It feels like the NHL is paving the way for him to be cleared by them publishing these types of articles. But, if you're San Jose, you're thinking Thomas Hertl and Timo Meier got to be the two players I build around, and I got to blow out a lot of other stuff, including Marc-Edouard Vlasic. I don't know what you do about Erik Karlsson. I've suggested a couple things I would try. And Brent Burns. Like, I think the days are numbered for these guys. They got to start rebuilding a little bit. But maybe they'll surprise and they'll be very competitive, but I don't think so. They did not show that last year. And they missed out on Tim Stützle, who they gave up in that Erik Karlsson trade to. And they gave up Josh Norris. So they gave up some really good assets that are now forming the core of Ottawa. So that's interesting. Unfortunate for them. All right. So the other thing that happened yesterday was interesting is the Disney schedule was released for the NHL. So ESPN will have a doubleheader on October the 12th at the beginning of the season. They've released their NHL schedule of games. They'll include games with Pittsburgh against Tampa Bay on October 12th. And the Seattle Kraken will play the Vegas Golden Knights at 10 p.m. Eastern. We know that they play in the West Coast, so that'll be interesting. They will be at Vegas because, once again, they do not have an arena they can play. Like, what's going on? So they're going to hit the road. They're going to be on the road for the beginning part of the season. I think this team's going to struggle in the beginning, and I don't know what's going to happen when it comes time to having their schedule. I mean, I don't know how they can even project dates. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. They must have a contingency plan they're not talking about, I don't know where they would play. Like, would they play at the ShoWare Center in Seattle? Seems like it's pretty small for that. Everett's arena is bigger, but they're going to have I think the people come out to see NHL hockey. We'll find out October 1st because they play an expansion game in Everett against the Edmonton Oilers. So that'll be interesting to see if it's Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or both that are playing that game. But maybe I'll go back to Everett and check that out. They will have the NHL All-Star Skills Competition on February the 4th. So that'll be, I don't know. I don't love watching that. I don't know about you guys. They'll have 10 Saturday games beginning in February in the NHL Thanksgiving Showdown between St. Louis and the Blackhawks on November 26th. So they got a lot of stuff coming up. Are you looking forward to having ESPN broadcasting these games? I'm really interested to see the ESPN Plus games. So if they have streaming deal, I don't know if that means is NHL.TV dead? And if so, maybe it's good if they stop blocking out games, because it's a nightmare seeing NHL games on all these different channels. But then I see Turner Sports in the NHL announce a 7-year deal also. So, like, where are we going to see these games? I don't get it. So I guess we'll have to see. I feel like, once again, they're selling off two different groups of rights, and we as fans have to chase the games around. Rather than having one streaming app or one consistent channel I can watch everything on, it's really annoying. I have to, like, go to TNT. I got to go to TBS. I got to go to ESPN, and I got to go ESPN Plus, and it's just all over the map. Like, it's going to be weird also not having an NBC, but I don't know. We're going to see what happens here. They have their own flavor, obviously, of broadcasters, so that's going to be interesting too. It was different. I think they need to work on their set a little bit. which games are you interested and excited about seeing? And are you excited about seeing them on ESPN? So it'll be interesting to see how that all turns out. I'm not sure. I was hoping the streaming app would be a lot better. We've seen a lot of glitches with the ESPN Plus app, like just watching UFC fights. That's been like, it kind of crashes the ESPN app consistently. So what are they going to do with NHL hockey when I don't know. That seems strange. Well, maybe they'll get their act together. That's what we hope. Did you see this where we saw for the first time Marc-Andre Fleury in his new Chicago Blackhawks uniform and mask? What do you think of this? Some people were expressing disappointment at seeing it. I liked it, man. I don't know. He looks good in this uniform. If you look on Twitter, he looks like he's meant to be. It's like first of all, it's pretty hard to look bad in that uniform. I think it's just like probably the most iconic uniform in all of sports, maybe. I don't know, man. He's got the flow going, so that's looking good. You can't see it in this thing, but hold on, see if we can fix this. But I don't know. I thought he looked pretty good. Let's see if we can pull this up better. He looked pretty good to me. No, because that's before he had the mask. What happened there? Whatever. I thought he looked really good. So this, I think, will really help Chicago. Obviously, they also made the aggressive move to have Ellen Walsh's agent posting this mask up. So that's cool. Wow, that is a sharp mask. I don't know. Are you interested in this? This is kind of cool. Look at this. He's got the whole Blackhawks with a 29 on there. Pretty attractive mask. He's got kind of the sparkles in there, so that's pretty interesting. And then I think, again, the uniform was pretty awesome. So it was pretty interesting to see that. Wow, there's so many fake Marc-Andre Fleury accounts. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Jeez, I don't know. Well, he had the flow going. Hey, Bud the Monkey, thanks for joining this morning. So if you're just joining us, we kind of touched on some of the progress of the Detroit Red Wings playing the Dallas Stars prospects yesterday. We have 2 games today that we were talking about in the Traverse City schedule, so that'll be interesting to see. Let's see. We have Toronto Maple Leafs playing today again. They lost yesterday to the Columbus Blue Jackets prospects after being ahead 2-0. I think they lost 4-3. And today we will see them play at against the St. Louis Blues at 3:00 Eastern time. And then at 7:00, the Dallas Stars will play the Columbus Blue Jackets prospects. We don't see Detroit play again until tomorrow when they play the St. Louis prospects. So that'll be interesting. We had some great performances from those players. It's good. I'm used to it, man. I really like the Marc-Andre Fleury jersey and the mask. And it gives you a little bit of hope. Like if Jonathan Toews can come back, apparently it looks good in practices, and they have lots of young talent. And if Seth Jones can perform, well, he's definitely going to be better than anyone they had last year on D. So that's an improvement. Even if they are prospects, Toronto still likes blowing leads. I know. It was crazy. It's so crazy because we were just commenting, first of all, if you look at the Toronto prospect roster, they had Nick Robertson, they had Rodion Amirov. Like, they look really, like, on paper, pretty good. Not so much. Not so much the results. They're up 2-0 and then they blow the lead. So not cool, man. Let's see. There's somewhere it was breaking down. Is this it? Yeah. So we said Mikhail Abramov. He's a pretty good player out of Victoriaville. Ryan Shazowski, if you know, I don't know if he's the dad or the nephew of Dean Shazowski. And then there was the other Shazowski, Dave Shazowski. So there's a little bit of WHL lineage there. Simeon I cannot pronounce your last name. He's a pretty talented player. Where are Petrozelli? I don't know what happened to this. I wonder if he played yesterday. I'll have to check on that. I didn't watch the game. I didn't see if it was posted online. We should check and see if it's on YouTube. He was a Detroit Red Wings draft pick, didn't sign. I think he was supposed to attend Boston's prospect camp, but then I saw him on the roster yesterday. So he signed to an AHL contract. So that's interesting. I guess Toronto signed him to an AHL contract. That's a pretty interesting signing by Toronto. Nick Robertson, I think, will probably be in the NHL this year, at least partially. Colby Saganuk. This is interesting. Free agent signing. If you know Toronto Maple Leafs history, there was a player named Rocky Saganuk. And Rocky Saganuk kind of bounced between the AHL and the NHL. And I think this is his kid. Let's take a look. He's out of Chicago, Illinois. He's a 2003 pick. Yep, his grandfather is Rocky Saganuk. Jeez. Okay, his grandfather, not his dad. Yeah, because that would make a lot more sense, actually. Ian Scott's projected to be a pretty decent goalie, but he played in the ECHL, so that was not really translated yet. So the guy I don't see here is Rodion Amirov. So that's interesting. I guess Amirov might be back in the KHL. So that might probably make sense that he's not here. But they definitely have a lot of talent there still despite that. So, but yeah, they have a talent for blowing leads. I like the uniform on Fleury. It looks really good. Where do you see Bergstrom slotted in Chicago? That is a great question. I think he'll be third line centerman. I think that they're going to give him an opportunity to hold down that spot, unless he has a terrible camp. I would say that that's probably where he slots in. And that's what they're projecting on here. So I think he'll get every chance to do that. We know Tyler Johnson can play center. I actually like Tyler Johnson better at center. I think he gets a little bit lost on the wing, but I don't know if Borgstrom can play the wing at all. So that'll be interesting to see. I think Dylan Strome continues to be on the outs in Chicago. So I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge for him to play second line, but maybe Jonathan Toews inspires him. I thought Kurashev was also a centerman. So they got a lot of guys who can play center, including they acquired Karya, former Everett Silvertip. So was his brother Savvy Karya. So they're interesting. I really love Kirby Dach. The more I watch him, he's just going to get better and better, and I think he'll take on that number one center role. That takes a lot of pressure off Jonathan Toews to come back, especially if they can move Tyler Johnson up in here. So I think it's up to Henrik Borgstrom to lose that third line job. I mean, I don't see anyone else that fits that perfectly. Calvin DeHaan, we know, is a bit of an issue about injuries all the time. Seth Jones will be a great upgrade. Connor McMurphy signed a longer deal. Kaliniuk showed he can get points in the AHL. Can he do it over an 82-game season? And then if Jake McCabe's healthy. So I think that he'll be real good. So I think they've improved there. And then, of course, in net, like having a veteran like Fleury mentor young Kevin Lankin, who had some success last year and then kind of fell off, that might be really good. And we'll see if Lankinen's a long-term prospect. They're projecting him as one. So that'll be interesting. Good morning, Michael Rosenblatt and Bud. Are you at lunch? Yeah, you guys are supposed to be in school, I thought. Homecoming week here, so much of the stuff. Oh, that's interesting. You have homecoming week. Right now, I'm leaving school to get food and then go back. Do you think the Panthers should look at Gavrikov? Is Gavrikov on the block for Columbus? I can't see them trading him. He's a big defenseman. I like the way he plays. He's a decent skater, makes good outlet passes. I don't know if he gets you a lot of offense, but he's better than people realize. He's an excellent number 4 defenseman on a team. I'm not taking anyone to the dance, but I think you're talking to Michael Rosenblatt. All right, so we've talked a little bit about Seattle Kraken, Detroit Red Wings prospects, and Dallas prospects. Talked a little bit about Montreal, which is interesting. We also have the Arizona. In Arizona, we have the Prospects Western Tournament, NHL, Arizona. Let's take a look at that. The rookie face-off is what they call it. So that starts today. And that's when we'll get a chance to see anyone has a price. We will get to see some pretty interesting prospects. Today, the first game is at 3 p.m. at the Ice Den in Scottsdale. Interesting. I guess I could have gone there. That would have been that. I'm quite familiar with that ice. So seen a lot of Tier 1 hockey games there. Los Angeles versus Colorado. Los Angeles looks stacked, guys. Like their rookie group is crazy. Then we'll see at 5 o'clock San Jose versus Anaheim. Anaheim has Trevor Zegras, which is really crazy. I'm not sure about San Jose. We'll have to take a look at their roster. Vegas versus Arizona, the 7:30 p.m. game. So we'll have to check and see if any of these games are online. Oh, there is streaming information. Let's take a look. So we have rookie face-off tickets. Where's the streaming info? Buying tickets. Where's the streams? That'll be interesting. Let's take a look at the roster. Oh, there we go. Let's take a look at San Jose, because I don't remember if we looked at this. Ooh, all right. So they have some players in camp, guys. William Eklund will be the guy mainly to watch. He was their first-round draft pick. He's an 02 birth year. He's the best friend of Alexander Holtz. He played center for Holtz this season, and man, he did a bang-up job. A lot of people say that he's maybe a little bit better than Lucas Raymond. I'll tell you, last night, Lucas Raymond looked great. Zach Gallant, an ex-Detroit Red Wings prospect. So that's interesting. Played in the AHL last year for the Barracuda. Let's see who else we're interested in seeing here. Jacob Mcgrew. That'll be interesting to see. He's from Orange, California. Can he... I project him as an AHLer, but it's interesting because he is from California. Adam Raska, this is a pretty interesting player. We'll see where he's actually at. He's a little smaller than I realized. That's interesting. Aussie Westblatt. So Wiesblatt, I think that's how you pronounce his name, WHL player. If you recall, when he was drafted, they signed his name because his parents are deaf. So I thought that was pretty interesting. They signed that they had drafted him, and Doug Wilson Jr. That's a good question. Is Byram playing for the Avs? Let's check it out. And then I'm trying to see on D, the guy that, Ryan Merkley's in camp. Oh, interesting. Montana Onobuchi's there. So Montana, the story there, WHL player, big, tough guy. Great kid. Drafted by the Everett Silvertips. Made a trade early on to acquire... who was he part of that? Who was part of that trade? I don't think that was a while ago. So who would that trade have been? I have to remember. But he was definitely traded, but drafted by Everett. So he's in camp for San Jose. So that's really interesting. I project him as being a pretty good AHL player. Ryan Merkley, man, they got to hope that this guy starts popping through. He's got all the talent to be in the NHL. So that'll be interesting. Zach Sachenko, that's interesting. I don't know about these other goalies. But those are kind of the players that I would keep an eye on, Ryan Merkley and Onobuchi. And then you were asking about Colorado. Let's look at Colorado. I wonder if Martin Kaut is back, because I don't know if he should be back, but he might be. Oh, Ryan Hofer. So there you go. Another Everett Silvertip in camp. He's a big kid. His brother Joel is a really good goaltending prospect, formerly Portland Winterhawk for the St. Louis Blues. So that'll be interesting to see how Ryan does. He should be an important part of our team. Interesting, they have Alex Newhook is in their prospect camp. I mean, this guy's probably going to be on the roster opening day. I don't see how he's not for Colorado. Jean-Luc Foudy, his brother Liam Foudy, with Columbus Blue Jackets. I think he's pretty much projected to be in their lineup. All the Foudy brothers can really skate, so that's a player to keep an eye on. Sampo Ranta, that's a player to keep an eye on. Played in Minnesota and Colorado in the AHL and I don't know, he might be in the NHL before we realize it. He kind of sounds like he had a great year. And look at that. We have both Justin Barron and Bo Byram. That just seems unfair. So that's really interesting. Wow. Both of them on their roster. And net, I don't know these goalies very well. Let's see. Well, Trent Miner was in the WHL. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. I don't know these other two goalies, I don't think. One's a U.S. goalie and one's a Finnish goalie. So be interesting to see. But those are kind of the players that I would keep an eye on. Let's check out some of the other rosters. Let's look at Vegas. I'm kind of curious about Vegas. Is Frenchie okay? Oh yeah, this is the second one this week I've done alone. So Coach Frenchie, he had, let me think, he was scouting this morning, I think for the Florida Junior Panthers. I think that's what he said, for the midget team maybe. And then he was also, or he was doing evaluations for them. And then he was also going to ref. So he was not available this morning. Curious if teams in the rebuild will start to follow Yote's way. Man, they're unloading and getting a lot of picks. So it's interesting. They're loading up for the next two drafts. And when we looked at those two drafts, they look very, very good. So I think no matter what, that's going to pay off for Arizona long term. All right, so Vegas, let's take a look here and see if we see anyone. Zack Dean's interesting from Grand Prairie, Alberta, but he played for the Hull Olympic, or sorry, Gatineau now. So that's an interesting player to keep an eye on. I don't know this Russian player, but he played in Henderson. Dorofiev. I don't think I've seen him, but this is the guy. Wow, Peyton Krebs is in this. I mean, Peyton Krebs is an absolute killer in the WHL. I project him being in the NHL probably right away this year. I mean, he's a very high-end player. I think they felt very comfortable moving out Cody Glass and taking a risk on Nolan Patrick because they think Peyton Krebs is just going to have an impact on their lineup sooner than later. Mason Primo, I think this is Keith Primo's son. Is it Keith or is it Wayne's? I can't remember. Daniel Chayka, interesting. Okay. So he's in camp. He's an 0-2, big defenseman from Russia. Yeah, I don't know if I see anyone else that I'm really projecting as being a high-end player there. Yeah, so those are the players I would just keep an eye on. Curious to see how Mason Primo does. He's a really big guy, 6'6". I think he typically plays center. Peyton Krebs is going to be a star, in my opinion. I think eventually he'll be like a 60, 70-point player in the NHL. And Zack Dean's a guy to keep an eye on. So those are interesting players just to check out. And then I think we looked at this before, but let's just look at it again. Oh, excuse me. Given who they have, Colorado might be a little bit more competitive than I thought in this showcase. But look at LA. Arthur Kaliev? What? They have Kaliev in this? This can't be right. Oh my God. That's crazy. Tyler Madden. So I think they added Kaliev back in because he wasn't on the original roster. Francesco Pinelli is going to, it's crazy they got him because I think he's going to be a real good prospect too. Alex Turcotte, I mean, looking for a breakout year from him, either in the AHL or I don't think the NHL necessarily, but at least the AHL. He'll probably get enough games in the NHL, but maybe starts in the opening roster. But he was a high draft pick for them. So that's a really good player. Son of Alfie Turcotte, former Montreal Canadian. Martin Chromiak, watch this guy because I really believe if he comes over, I think he should play in the AHL and get acclimatized because he's got lots of talent. He was on the line with Shane Wright and Zayd Wisdom in the Kingston of the OHL. And then last year, we saw him at the World Junior Championships, and he looked really, really, really dangerous there. So he's a real good offensive prospect. Brett Kemp, drafted by the Everett Silvertips in the WHL, and then again traded as part of a package to get another older player. Ended up going on to have a great WHL career, and I think he's in camp on tryout. I don't think that he's been drafted. They have Quinton Byfield. So this will be interesting to see. He only got 1 assist in his 6 games. I don't think he looked out of place in the NHL. I don't know if he's ready to produce offensively. We saw him play third line minutes on Team Canada. So that's really a little concerning. And I don't know if he even deserved it, to be honest with you. He looks like he still has some physical maturation, even though he's a big, tall guy. He needs to work on his stability. But I think being in the AHL last year versus the OHL was really good for him. And he had good numbers there. And down the stretch on the AHL, he's really started to play well. Fajimo, big-time goal scorer. So look for this guy. We saw him in the World Juniors. We saw him in the AHL. He played in Sweden last year, scored in all those scenarios. Really, really talented offensive player. Can he make the NHL at some point and have an impact? Ty McSorley, is this guy related to Marty McSorley? Let's take a look. You got to think either Chris or Marty. This is a player that's related to him. It's interesting he's born in Mississauga, so that might be not Marty McSorley. I would think it's Ty. No, absolutely no relation, it looks like. Wow, that's crazy. He played for the Mississauga Reps. In the GTHL. Mississauga Chargers and the OJ. So I don't know. He's got to be related somehow. That's weird. I'd be surprised if he's not. Aiden Dudas looked really good in the last prospect camp. Look for him to have a bigger impact in the AHL next year. Rasmus Kupari might start on the NHL roster. He's really close. So that's a really good player. I mean, they're very deep up front. Sean Jersey, I think he'll be in the AHL again, but he played very well in the AHL. Maybe he'll get some NHL games. I think he's repped by Scott Norton. I'll have to check with Scott on that. Jordan Spence, I really like him. He's a smaller defenseman. He's got some good wheels. Played with Moncton, and he played with the Val-d'Or Furriers. Brant Clark, this is their first-round draft pick. He played in Slovakia last year because there was no OHL season. Big 6'2" defenseman with high hockey IQ. His skating is weird, but this is a really important player for Los Angeles, as he's probably their top defensive prospect and their best hope to have a number 1 or a number 2 defenseman in the future. Keep an eye on Helge Grans. Helge Grans, I think, should be in the NHL at some point. I don't know if he's a bottom 6 defenseman, but he's a big guy with good skills, and I kind of like this pick. So they have some players in this tournament. They should be the favorite to win this, but hey, no guarantees when you got Colorado with Alex Newhook, Bo Byram, and Justin Barron on their defense. You never know how that turns out. Jacob Ingram hasn't really panned out, which doesn't surprise me. Lucas Perrick, I think, could be a good goalie, but we'll see what happens. He technically looks good, but so far the numbers haven't panned out, and I don't really know this goalie at all. So I don't see anyone there that's really like a Cal Peterson. We saw Cal Peterson a number of years ago in this tournament. It was pretty exciting because he was just dominating. Do you think there are any sleeper prospects that can blow up in the next 3 prospect showcase for the Panthers? That is a good question. Well, let's see. Florida Panthers prospect roster. Let's pull that up. I should have this at my fingertips by now. Let's see who's on. The one thing, if I recall, I mean, obviously Lundell there. So I don't know if there's like a sleeper, but Lundell will be the guy to keep an eye on, right? Denisenko's in their camp, so that's going to be important. Sarah Noel, he's younger than we realize. He's the same age as Denisenko, and he's a big guy. So that's a guy to keep an eye on. Does he take another step? Trevor Wong, I'm not convinced, but he's an undrafted guy that they might pick up. You're hoping that Matt Kierstead is close because he ain't young. So if he's not going to make it now, I don't know when he will be. And then we've got Spencer Knight. Aside from that, I'm not sure if there's anyone that's really, I think you just have to keep your eyes open and see, but there's no one else that I'm like saying, hey, keep an eye on this guy. I don't see anyone there that I recognize that would really kind of excite me. Doesn't mean there's not. I think it just, let's see how they do. That's what you got to look at. What's the main goal of the Silvertips? Is it win or help develop NHL players? We do develop NHL players just by default because we want to develop players in general, and whether they go play Canadian University, AHL, overseas, or in the NHL, that's definitely part of it. But our objective is to win the Memorial Cup. So the CHL, the Canadian Hockey League, is comprised of 3 individual leagues: the Western Hockey League, the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League, and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And you'll hear Coach Frenchie talk about that. Each of the champions from each of those leagues then comes together with a host team to play for the Memorial Cup. So our goal is, in the end, to win a Memorial Cup. In the last 2 years, I think we would have won one. We were stacked. We had the best goalie in Canada. We had prospects that you can see are all over the place. Like we had Bryce Kindup, who's played really well in the AHL this past season, but would have been with us. You see Cole Fonstad, who's playing on the Columbus prospect team. You see Gianni Fairbrother in Montreal. You see Jake Christensen, who's playing the Columbus prospect team. We had a lot of great players. Like we were stacked, man. We should have. Yeah. We'll be okay this year. I think we have one problem. We don't have the best goaltending in Canada anymore. And for like a period of 3-4 years, we had Carter Hart. And then we had Dustin Wolf. So we had the best goaltending 7-8 years straight in the whole Canadian Hockey League out of all those 60 teams. And we don't have that. I think it's a little bit of a question mark this year. And our goaltender coach, James Jensen, has got his work cut out for him to try to figure out who's going to be the guy that backstop us. But there's some good goalies there. We'll see what happens. Is Jacob Chychrun the best Florida-born NHL player? So Jacob Chychrun, his dad's Jeff Chychrun, and that's why he was born in Florida. So Canadian by association of his dad, but maybe. Yeah, probably. Because I think he's a top 10 NHL defenseman, maybe top 5, depending on the given day, but definitely top 10. And he looks like he's just going to get better. So I think, that's probably a pretty safe assumption. All right, we have about 7 minutes before the hour. I don't know if you guys have any questions. Is there anything else that you want to take a look at? What we'll do is we'll do a live again tomorrow night with the St. Louis and Detroit Red Wings prospect game on Saturday. There probably won't be anything tonight. I'm sure that Coach Frenchy will probably be on tonight. He didn't confirm that one way or the other. Hopefully he wasn't messaging me because he told me he wasn't going to be on today. I'll double check. Hopefully I didn't just exclude him by accident. But he told me that, yeah, he hasn't messaged me. So I would assume that he'll be on tonight. Thank you for joining us this morning. Check out YouTube and see if you can see any of the other prospect games. We know that we have both the Western Arizona based live game streams will only be available on each participating team's broadcast market. Interesting. All right, so we'll have to check back. We'll post up some links to games as we find them, because we know tonight in the Western Prospect Tournament we have Arizona versus Vegas, LA Kings versus actually that's wrong. That's totally wrong. Wait, where's the dates? Yeah, LA versus Colorado at 3 p.m., San Jose versus Arizona or Anaheim at 5 p.m., and then Vegas versus Arizona at 7:30. So check out each of their respective YouTube channels or NHL pages, because that's where apparently you'll find streaming information. And then we know in the Traverse City Prospect Tournament today, we have, let's see, what did we have in the other tournament? We had 2 games, one at 3 o'clock and one at 7, I think. So check those out. You should see those games streamed hopefully as well. All right. Thanks for joining this morning. Of course. Thank you. Have a good day at school, Michael. This has been Pucks and Dreams and Hockey Nation Live, and we will see you over the course of the Prospect Tournament and over the course of training camp, which starts next week. Most training camps start on the 23rd. So we're excited about that. With all of that means that we're about 25 days away from the beginning of the NHL season.